Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and welcome to our final episode of Batman Be Vlogged, the vlog series where I review an episode of Batman Beyond after watching it for the very first time. Today, we are not looking at an episode of Batman Beyond, but instead we are looking at an episode of Justice League Unlimited. We are looking at the Season 2 finale, Epilogue, from a story by Bruce Timm and Dwayne McDuffie, written by Dwayne McDuffie and directed by Dan Reba. As always, because I do these unscripted, there is a blanket spoiler warning in place, just in case I decide to talk about spoilers. If you do not wish to be spoiled for the events of Epilogue, then this is your one chance to pause the video and jump ship, go watch the episode in question, and then come back and resume this video. Now, Epilogue is kind of interesting. I did some scant research before making this video just to make sure I had this right, and I don't think my research was very good, so I still may be wrong. I look forward to your corrections in the comments if I am. I believe Epilogue was originally intended to be the series finale of Justice League Unlimited. I don't know if it's just because that was originally Bruce Timm's idea, or if the creatives were uncertain about the show's future, so they made a series finale. But either way, the show got greenlit for one more season after this. It's also interesting, too, because Justice League and Justice League Unlimited were ensemble shows. There was a much larger focus on the group rather than individuals. Yes, there were episodes concentrated on certain individuals, but the focus of Justice League, and again Justice League Unlimited, was much more on the ensemble. And as such, Batman in both series was often seen sort of taking a back seat, being a player in events, but not the key player so much. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because this episode obviously has a very big focus on both Batman and Terry McGinnis. And that's because in the idea that this was originally supposed to be the series finale of Justice League Unlimited, this was also supposed to be the series finale of the Bruce Timm-verse overall. It's why there is such a strong focus, again, on Batman Beyond and a little bit on Batman the Animated Series. It was supposed to wrap up all the shows. So Justice League Unlimited, Batman, Batman Beyond, Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond. Not so much Superman the Animated Series. There's not so much tying into that in particular. Or Static Shock, for that matter. I don't remember if Static had just begun by this time or not. I was a kid in the early 2000s, so I didn't really pay attention to things like that. But yeah, to wrap it up short and sweet, Epilogue is fantastic. To be a little more specific, and I will get into specifics, it is a great execution of an idea that I do not like. And for those of you familiar with the events, I still don't think on paper I like this idea, but the execution of it is so solid that at least in this presentation, I do end up liking it. And for those of you familiar with the events of Epilogue, yes, it is the controversial one. I do fall on the side of not liking that idea. So, okay, again, for a little bit more context, Batman Beyond, I found out recently, actually watching the behind-the-scenes features for Return of the Joker, Batman Beyond takes place 50 years after the events of Batman the Animated Series. This episode, Epilogue, takes place 65 years after the events of Justice League Unlimited. So, just for scale, that is, to give us a full context, that is Batman the Animated Series, Justice League Unlimited, 50 years, Batman Beyond, and then another 15 years after that gives us Epilogue. And I bring this up because there is some design changes from what we saw in Batman Beyond. A much older Terry McGinnis decides to go and see, putting it mildly, Amanda Waller because he has just learned something. And the first thing you'll immediately notice is the kind of drastic redesign Terry has here. Yes, it kind of shows Terry as being older. I don't think it entirely lands. It's a good design, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it entirely lands because so much of the original Terry is kind of missing. You know, his hair is darker, his skin is more tan, whereas in Batman Beyond he was very pale. There are some things that work about it. You know, he's taller, he's much more broad and muscular. You know, something years of being Batman will do. But then there are other things like in Batman Beyond, Terry had a very pointed chin, and this particular design of older Terry has a much more square jaw. Like, to kind of build up to this point, Terry in this episode kind of looks like how Bruce Wayne looked in Batman the Animated Series. And there is a reason for that. And as I said, Terry has just learned something that is leading him to a direct confrontation with a much older Amanda Waller. And I want to go on a little tangent real quick and give a hot take. As far as I know, because there are projects I have not gotten to yet, there has never been a bad casting of Amanda Waller. Yes, some products, some adaptations, some products have not used her the best, but there has never really been a bad casting for her, you know. In the Snyderverse and now the Gunverse as well, you know, WB's current DC output, we have Viola Davis, Angela Bassett in Green Lantern. Heck, we had Pam Grier in Smallville. Here in Justice League, she is voiced by CCH Pounder. And a lot of this episode, there's flashbacks and callbacks and, you know, but a lot of this episode is a two-handed play between Terry McGinnis and Amanda Waller, and Will Friedle and CCH Pounder are both really good here, especially Will Friedle. I don't know if it was just the gap between series, but Will Friedle is doing something very subtle to just make his voice sound older, as if, you know, time has passed between the events of Batman Beyond and this point in time in Epilogue, and just it's so much more subtle than what Will Friedle has done in the series, in particular his Batman voice. It really works. There are also some creative plot devices in play. Like, initially, we get a lot of flashbacks. There's one flashback that's important, and I'm not going to talk about it too much, and I'll explain why in a moment. But all of these flashbacks take place in black and white, like Terry confronting Bruce over what he's just learned. Terry breaking up with Dana because he doesn't want to put Dana in danger. Terry quitting the Justice League. And again, all of these flashbacks take place in black and white. And it gives you the idea, especially because a lot of these flashbacks show things out of character. Like in one of them, Bruce says things he would never actually say or think or believe. And in another one, and in regards to that too, just the flashbacks themselves all contradict each other. And it leads to this idea. I saw someone else bring this up, and it's interesting, and I'm kind of subscribing to this theory too, that these flashbacks didn't actually happen. They are just scenarios playing out in Terry's heads, like what ifs or what could have beens. There is one other flashback in this episode. Well, there's a couple, but they take place in color, which again, the ones in black kind of lends credence to this. The ones in black and white are what ifs, what could have beens. They never actually happened. The ones in color actually happened. So let's stop skirting around the fact, because this is one of the big things this episode is known for. It was revealed, through a plot device that's only exposited, Bruce's kidneys were failing, and they needed a donor sample to clone new kidneys. Which raises questions. It's like, if you're going to clone kidneys, why couldn't you just use Bruce's DNA to begin with? But anyway, Terry was tested, and he found out he was a 100% match. And he does some further digging. It's never explained how he does this or what he realizes. He realizes that he is genetically Bruce Wayne's biological son. And this was the thing I was building up to. A great execution of an idea that I don't like. Because, especially lately, there has been this trend in DC Comics on specifically how important Batman is to the universe. And it's kind of a further idea. It kind of feels like it's the starting point of this idea in comics about idealizing and worshiping heroes. Like, some of the best comic book stories resolve around heroes being ideals people should strive for, but not the be-all end-all solution. What was it? There was a quote in Superman the Animated Series I was trying to think of, and I don't remember what it was. It's like, at the end of the day, the world didn't need a Superman, just a brave one. Superheroes are there to stop the big threats, yes, but what they represent should be ideals people should strive for in and of themselves. The world shouldn't need superheroes. And it's just, in particular, along with this idea about how necessary superheroes in any forms are, especially in recent DC Comics, there's been this emphasis on Batman in particular. It just, having Terry be Bruce's biological son feels like it's playing into that idea. It's like, especially because it's just, there is also this idea to it from Batman Beyond that anyone could be a hero, in striving for those ideals. Anyone could put on the cowl and with the right mindset be Batman. But the fact that now Terry is Bruce's son, it feels like, no, it has to be someone connected to Bruce Wayne. It has, Bruce Wayne is the most important thing in the universe. Now that I'm saying this out loud, it feels like in a lot of ways this is still reactionary to the events of Nightfall, Nightquest, and Night's End, and Jean-Paul Valley as Batman. But that's just me. The idea that Terry is Bruce's son, because it kind of lends credence to this idea about how important Batman is to the DC universe. I just don't like it. Again, the execution is good because Will Friedle gives this really good performance about, did he ever do any of this of his own free will? Was it all predetermined? Now that he knows this, how can he be his own person if he lives in Bruce's shadow? And throughout the course of this, Amanda Waller explains why she did this, why she thinks the world needed a Batman, and it leads to one of the best Batman scenes in any Batman media. Basically the League was fighting another iteration of the Royal Flush Gang, and I'm going to stop there. I have rehearsed this. I haven't taken notes or written the script to talk about it, but I have rehearsed doing this segment so many times, talking about this sequence. And every time I get misty-eyed and a little teary talking about it. So let me say, it is fantastic. Kevin Conroy gives a very subtle performance. And Hynden Walsh as well is amazing, as well as CCH Pounder. Just her as Amanda Waller in that situation versus her as the older Amanda Waller reminiscing about it. It is one of the best Batman scenes of all time, and I just wish I could actually talk about it. Also, for that regard too, like I said, we have two scenes in this story as well. I think they only total about 2 or 3 minutes. The what if scenario where Terry breaks up with Dana because at this point in time, Dana does know Terry is Batman, and he's still worried he's putting her in danger. And then the final scene where at 3 a.m. Terry calls her and they have this very sweet scene. This one episode with like less than 3 minutes of screen time has done the character of Dana Tan so much more justice than the entirety of Batman Beyond. Also, in regards to the idea that Epilogue is the series finale to the Bruce Timm-verse, not just Justice League or, not just Justice League Unlimited, which would have been the original plan. There's also a really great nod to Mask of the Phantasm. Realize Amanda wanting to create a new Batman, she tries to engineer a similar situation to Batman's origin, where, just coming out of a movie, having a blast, a child Terry would have witnessed his parents being murdered. And who was the murderer that Amanda Waller put up to it? Andrea Beaumont, the Phantasm, from Mask of the Phantasm. But ultimately, of course, Andrea doesn't go through with it. She kind of storms off and tells off Waller for how messed up it is. Because, in a way, too, Batman has rubbed off on Waller. If she wants to continue Batman's legacy, she realizes herself, as she says, Batman would never resort to murder. And then the episode kind of ends on this beautiful monologue from Amanda Waller. Like, given her portrayal in Justice League Unlimited, you kind of see this arc she goes through as the series progresses. And even though there is still series 4 after this, you kind of see in the far future what this arc built up to, how she was initially operating out of this place of fear in regards to the Justice League and the power and the threat they could potentially pose. But over time, she's softened and she's realized they are allies. And yeah, it's okay to be wary, but you can work with them. And she just gives this fantastic monologue to Terry before Terry goes back and sees Bruce one more time, before the episode ends with him suiting up to go off business as usual. Again, Epilogue is just a fantastic episode. It's like I said, it's got beautiful animation. I didn't really bring up the animation. The fight scenes are all really quick, and because they're not the focus of this story, it's a character piece. The animation is absolutely gorgeous. Like I said, the last thing we talked about was Return of the Joker, so just to see the leap in progress from 1999, 2000 to 2005, it's a tremendous feat, and the performances are all phenomenal. There's not a lot of people in this episode, but who we have are all terrific. Will Friedle and CCH Pounder take front and center stage, but we also have Kevin Conroy and Hynden Walsh. This was just an amazing way to end Batman Beyond. And thank you so much for sticking with me through this journey as I have watched Batman Beyond for the very first time. This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and I'll see you guys next time.